Hi, this is David Baumblatt from Terabint Leadership. Welcome to the show. Today we're going to be talking about the Directorate of National Intelligence, a couple stories also that coincide with it, and then we'll look at the news today, which coincides to the bigger story about the intelligence, the government, the corruption, and whatnot. Director of National Intelligence, what is that? So, just so everyone knows, that before 9/11, nothing such as the Director of National Intelligence. There's actually 16 different intelligence agencies. I think there's more now, considering Space Force is new. The government constantly creates new agencies, but generally there's 16 different agencies, intelligence agencies. For instance, every service has their own, the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, but then we have what's called the Big Five. And that's what I worked on later on, not when I was in the FBI. We'll get the story. And what is the Big Five? Well, you have the FBI, you have the CIA, you have the NSA, you have the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, and the usual we'll have is the NRO. But anyway, the Big Five. And then underneath that, the State Department is an intelligence agency, the DEA. I mean, it's flooded. This is the way our government is. So when I joined the FBI in 2004, there was a major possibility that the FBI was going to be split. It was going to break apart into two different agencies. One was going to do domestic intelligence, and the other was going to do law enforcement. That was because there was a lot of pressure from George Bush at the time, the president, the FBI, and whatever, especially the FBI was the lead agency for counterterrorism. George Bush at the time, this was Mueller, the FBI director, told Mueller, if there's another terrorist attack in America, he will be fired. So there's a lot of pressure. And so there was a talk about maybe the FBI having law enforcement intelligence together is sometimes very difficult to do, which is why I said it is the most powerful agency pound for pound. Obviously, the military is the most powerful, if you include military, intelligence, special operations, the guns, everything. To describe the FBI in basic terms, the best comparison would be the UK. Look at MI5, which is solely in charge of domestic intelligence, and then Scotland Yard, which would be the law enforcement combined. At the time, again, it was a big deal. I mean, my supervisor said, listen, we may split. There was a lot of pressure because people don't understand, and this also goes into what I report about the FISA. When you have law enforcement and you have intelligence combined, in the FBI, there's a bit of an iron curtain. There's not an iron wall, it's an iron curtain because different legalities pertain and different constitutional rights pertain. And that's why in the UK, they're totally separate. So MI5 has no law enforcement powers. They can't arrest. Where Scotland Yard, if they want to spy or do surveillance, it's strictly under the criminal code. So anyway, we don't have time to talk about it, but I've talked about this in many videos. This is the danger of it. I'm not saying I'm totally against it, where the FBI doesn't have to split, it can remain together, but it's very powerful. But then going back to the Director of National Intelligence, obviously something went drastically wrong on 9/11. And I'm definitely open to conspiracy theories. I don't believe we know the truth of what happened in 9/11, just like I don't want to do a tangent. I don't think we know the truth of what happened in World War II, but that's another story. Anyway, one of the problems to get solved, and it makes sense, it's part of leadership, it's called unity of command. You're the president of America. I don't have time for your president. All right, the FBI briefs me, the CIA briefs me. I need one source. So they created a brand new agency called the Director of National Intelligence. Now, while I was in the FBI at the time, it was pretty brand new. And we were starting to report to it, but it didn't have its teeth. It really wasn't formed, but it was in its infancy. So the FBI was starting to report to two areas, DOJ criminal and the Director of National Intelligence, along with everyone. So the CIA would report to them, the NSA, and that's where it went. And so that's the impetus or the reason of this Director of National Intelligence. And on paper, it makes sense. You need that one-stop source to collect. Now, truth be told, the Director of National Intelligence doesn't have much teeth, but they have budget. And that's what gave them the power, especially in the government. It's all about budget. So they had budgetary control. So a lot of the FBI's budget from intelligence, the CIA's budget would be routed to the Director of National Intelligence. So they had the power. But But in terms of the man work, or you could say the field work or getting the intelligence work done, it was still at those agencies. So the Director of National Intelligence was more of that strategic central location, specifically the conduit between the president and especially the big five. So hopefully that understands the Director of National Intelligence. That was, again, a product of 9/11 with President Bush putting it in. So my story into that, we'll get to the news here in a quick second. My story into that was when I left the FBI, I went to the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. And if you served in the military, you probably know that when you're in the military and you want to transition to the private sector, it's a lot harder said than done. And this also goes to my story, too, about why a lot of the people in the government, particularly, unlike those in the private sector, are much more terrified about job security, much more terrified about job security. Why? Because if you're in the private sector and whatever, you're IT, you're a lawyer, you're HR, those are transferable skills. Every company needs HR. So if you quit, if you get fired or whatever, you could generally easily go to another company with those same skill sets. Like you worked HR at IBM, you got fired or you quit, you go to Coca-Cola, same sort of skill sets. The military or intelligence, stuff like it's not like that. A lot of times our country doesn't recognize at least the soft skills. I won't go into it, but the point being is it's harder to transition. So when I was at the Kennedy School of Government, I did not want to work for the government anymore. And I made it known to the FBI. We had a very bad falling out. And they even threatened me. He's like, you, David, you will never work for the government again. Again, I didn't get fired from the FBI and I didn't get forced out. But if anyone knows me all the way back, probably all the way back to high school, I am a little bit of a, I speak my mind, and I don't say this to be joyous because I'm telling you, it's a much easier life to be a follower. Yeah, if I would write a book, one of the titles would be "Why Not to Be a Leader." It's just it brings a lot of pain. But the point is I push back a lot on management, and I'm telling you, the FBI is not like other people. They're very vengeful. Anyway, they made a threat to me. They're like, "You will never work for the government again." And I said, "Don't worry, I don't want to work for the government again," which was the truth. Well, they called my bluff. And so the story with the Director of National Intelligence, I was at Harvard and I didn't want to work for the government. I was looking for many other possibilities, but it goes back to the story with the military. You're kind of pigeonholed. So anyway, the recruiters at Harvard looked at me and said, listen, you're a West Point graduate, meaning you're military. You went in the FBI. You have a top secret SCI clearance. You're at the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. You're going to Washington, D.C. That's where all the jobs. I was like, I really don't want to go there. Anyway, I ended up getting a job at a prestigious consulting firm. I won't say the name. They treated me good, the consulting firm. And I got slotted as a contractor, which is a whole different story because I've said many times, the best and the brightest are not working on our government. But when it comes to the government contractors, you got the best and the brightest. I'm not saying morality. I could do stories on Eric Prince. But anyway, I was in Washington, D.C. in what's called Beltway bandits. And I am telling you, I have a West Point classmate who's a multi-millionaire doing government contracting. The problem is I've got nothing wrong with capitalism and you making a lot of money. But the problem is, I think we all agree, when you're leeching off the government taxpayer dimes, which is Boeing and Amazon too, it's kind of frowned upon if you're a taxpayer. And so the point is I don't want to do a deviant, but it's kind of like privatized prisons. You know, you privatize the prisons, you don't think there's an incentive for these government contractors to have more people in prison. And I'm telling the amount of corruption. Remember, the best and the brightest are two things. They're very competent, but I'm not saying their morals are very good. So the people that are in the contract industry and their government, think of Booz and Allen, all these consulting firms. These are some very smart, competent people because they are making they're making billions of dollars. So they got some top-notch people in them. But it's not pure capitalism. They're sucking off your taxpayer dime. And that's what I was. I was a Beltway bandit. And I was like, oh my God. And sure enough, they slotted me on the Director of National Intelligence. And I was right back in there. I was in the halls. It was the same thing with the FBI, the CIA, the NSA. I was working on the Big Five. And guess what? A year into it, my partners at the consulting firm, they called me and they said, David, the weirdest thing happened. Your clearance has been revoked. We have no clue what happened. I knew what happened. The FBI revoked my clearance. Now, at that time, I've never said this in terms of, I don't have any problem with the FBI on that. I never complained. I never wrote that in my book. My issue was overseas when I left. The FBI made a threat to me. I will never work for the government again. And I went back to them. I said, I don't want to work for the government again. And they called my bluff, and that was fine. So what happened was the consulting firm ended up putting me on like non-cleared projects, but that's not where the money was. And they were good to me, and I just transitioned out. But in terms of the FBI, it is what it is. But I think to most of the Americans, and I should do a snippet on Eric Prince. And I'm with Eric Prince kind of 50-50. But I say again, to these people, government contracting, you have no clue how much money these people are making off your taxpayer dimes. And are they worth it? Many times they're not worth it. The same thing I said about private prisons. If you're doing government contracting, privatized prisons, don't you think there's an incentive to have more prisoners in the prison? If you're Eric Prince, and oh, by the way, he's worked for the Chinese government, I know his firm in Hong Kong. If you're into private security, PMCs, private military contracting, you don't think there's an incentive to have wars? This is the danger. So I don't have a problem with these capitalists and entrepreneurs making money in the private sector. But once you're starting to the government, one, your profits are coming from the taxpayer, number one, which is kind of frowned upon, especially getting rich. But there's an incentive for you to influence the government in a way that is not beneficial to the American people. It's just beneficial to your pockets. Hence the military industrial complex like Boeing. What, do you don't think they want a war? Of course, they need wars. Anyway, so I was there in Washington, D.C. Good money, good firm. I was actually happy. And after that, once I didn't get fired. The company was nice to me. They just said, listen, your clearance is pulled and this and that. And I did a very friendly exit with them. They didn't know what the real reason was. It was the FBI, 100%. Otherwise, I've never done any criminal activities, anything like that. You don't just get your clearance pulled out of the blue. But anyway, that was the time I said, you know something? I thank the FBI, because sometimes you need a kick in the ass. And I said I never wanted to work for the government anymore. It's time. And that was time I said, let me go to China, because again, that was my dream to really get into the private sector, to really explore. And I was just there in Washington, D.C., which I'm telling you, it is one of the worst cities. Coming from New York, not like I'm saying New York's that great. I really think Washington, D.C. is probably the Satan's pit of America. I cannot, because they are some of the most rich, we're talking in the contractors, rich, narcissistic, just and not adding value too. I mean, we could defund our government, but Washington, D.C., oh my God, I changed my mind about New York. I was like, I'd rather be in New York. Washington, D.C. was just horrendous, whether it's with the government people who think they're so important, or you have no clue how rich these government contractors are. I mean, they are making a ton of money. And it's usually people who were prior government, then doing it's unbelievable how much money they're making. And they wasn't into that. But anyway, let's get into some news. I see Gifani's. Hey, how's it going? Good to see you. Let me see. We're going to go into some news on this, and then we're going to get back into the story. But all this relates to the same thing. It all relates to the same thing. And what is that? Our government, our country called the American Empire, the American Globalist Corporation. I'm telling you, it's declining. It's becoming more and more dysfunctional. Like I talked about in this government, it's not going to get better, people. I'm telling you, my videos are going to age like fine wine, and you're going to eventually see it's going to go down. Don't think so. Let's go through here, a couple of videos here. So the first is, I guess it's Memorial Day. Obviously, I'm overseas. Sometimes I do forget American holidays. So anyway, this is Gunther Eagle. I mean, he's got about 2 million followers. He's like a MAGA spokesman. He's all about military veterans. He knows about me. So Gunther, can you repost my message on government corruption, help out a military veteran? What I'm trying to say, it's fake. There's so much fakeness about it. You don't think so? Here we come. Now, the reason I want to bring up this next thing is just two things. I hear this all the time. I've been on social media now almost 3 years. I still get it from Americans like, are you sure they know who you are? Maybe they don't know, meaning I keep saying they're ignoring me, the government, this, and I keep getting it back like, maybe they don't know you. Well, any common sense, if the FBI knows about me, the CIA knows about me, the Director of National Intelligence knows about me, The Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, Pete may not, but in his realm, he does. I don't think the president, Donald Trump, knows about me. The point is, of course they do. Otherwise, they're not very competent, don't you think, our intelligence community? But anyway, here's just a couple more examples, and it's in some ways, it's really pathetic. Let's go here to Kevin. The reason I know this is Kevin actually followed me at one time. You can see he blocked me. I don't know if you know Kevin, but he's a senior national correspondent, this and that, Fox News, Harvard. So he followed me and then he blocked me. He probably knows who I am. You don't think he's a person in the know that could help out a military veteran get my story? Probably. Here's another guy right here. This guy's Mikey. Mikey blocked me from the very get-go. Hopefully, can everyone see this stuff? Yeah. Mikey blocked me from the very get-go. Mike's got an interesting story. I'll tell you this. He blocked me from the get-go on my first ex. He worked for Chuck Grassley. And I told you, Chuck Grassley is who I sent my letter to in 2007. Mike knows. He absolutely knows about it. He blocked me and blocked me again. The point is, sooner or later, it's the same thing I tell Americans. We don't have time to talk about the Pat Tillman story when I was in the military. I'm familiar with that. But I don't know, news to you, the government does cover-ups. I mean, as much as they like to say China's corrupt, North Korea's corrupt, like all these non-Western countries are corrupt. They always like to say that. No, America is becoming more and more corrupt. Why? Because the American empire is declining, and you're seeing. Let me just say this now. No, 3 reasons why America will collapse. There's 3 reasons. 1, if you remember this is a good point. 1 is the debt. 2 is the corruption, and 3 is the inequality. Just ask yourself, how, even with Donald Trump, like the Republicans and the Democrats, how's the debt going? Up, right? Strong military. Let's get into these military wars, all this stuff. Debt, up. What about inequality? Just like these Republicans are like, you're an anti-capitalist. Well, if this is capitalism where the top 1% get more and more money, then you could keep what it is. We're getting more and more inequality. And I'm not talking about white and black and gender. A lot of that is just retarded stuff. I don't believe in that stuff. And I'll be happy to debate anyone. But we are talking economics, though. It's as black and white as can be. So the top 1% continue to get more and more money. That's inequality. And 2 or 3, corruption. Yes, we're getting more. Don't believe me? Look at what Donald Trump has said. He's even said the court system's corrupt, the FBI's corrupt. Of course, now he's president, he's got to tone it down. But anyone sees these 3 things are rising. Corruption is, I'm going to tell you a story about my story too in this, and you're just going to see it. Corruption is rising. Inequality is rising. I'm talking about economic inequality. The debt is rising. Good luck. If you've ever studied history, I'm telling you, the writing's on the wall. Is any of this going to get reversed? Hasn't reversed under Donald Trump. You think the Democrats are going to reverse it? No way. So anyway, I just want to point that out because everyone's like, maybe, David, they don't know about you. Now, of course, there's some people like, I'm going to give Tucker Carlson. There could be a good point. Tucker may not know about me. So there are. But our government, 100% they know about me. So anyway, let's do a couple last things. We'll get to the videos, and I'll tell you stories about the Director of National Intelligence. This is about leadership, though, these same things. Let's do Leadership 101. Here we go. So we don't need Mikey anymore, but let's go to her. Hopefully everyone can see Emerald. So what does Emerald say? She's like, when people ask me what they could do, they said, we need to send our children to the FBI and the CIA and change the system. Hopefully everyone can see that. This is what I said, as a former, you're completely fucking wrong. You're absolutely completely wrong. Well, I'm going to answer her question. I'm going to give you the leadership thing, but here, let's go to her. Then she makes another comment. She's like, my fellow Christians, our illustrious ancestors, our founding fathers, did an armed conflict. We need to do an armed conflict. And what did I say? Yeah, our forefathers also said white women don't get the right to vote. That was a horrible thing. So what am I saying on that? Well, 2 things on leadership. Basically, she's the woman. She's like, you men need to go fight and die. I'm going to stay here. They usually do that. They want the men to go fight and die. And oh, by the way, by me leaving the country, that is a form of courage. How many times do you know people working in corporations, they hate it, but they don't quit? Leaving the country, believe it or not, it is a form of change. I don't pay my taxes. As little as it is, I don't pay my tax. It's a form, which is another reason why the government doesn't want my story to come out, because they love to hear Americans who left America and they're like, I hate my life. I miss America. Now, I'm not saying if you leave America, it is going to be difficult. America is a phenomenal country, and you don't hear many Americans moving to Africa and saying, I love Africa. And I've definitely changed my tone on mainland China. But there are countries in the world, you'd be surprised. But if I never go back to America the rest of my life again, I'm fine. I really don't have any complaints. But anyway, back to this story. This woman is trying to egg on men to fight. And at the same time, these women retain the right to vote. Not very good. But anyway, about her story about getting into the FBI and the CIA, Nick Fuentes, which I've come to learn via online, I could say positive things about him. But what he said and what she said is similar. They're both retarded in terms of that, retarded to the nth degree. What do I mean by that? They both said, we need to go to Washington, D.C. All you conservatives, get to Washington. No, retarded. Get into the FBI. Said, yeah, it was in the FBI. I am telling you, you go to these institutions, you're going to do it their way, or you're going to be in a lot of trouble. There's no changing the system. Look at Dan Bongino. What an absolute traitor, the deputy director. And he's like, goes in there, I'm going to change the system. Then he goes in there and he's like, nothing to say here. I want to keep making my $1 million job. So what's my advice on leadership? Leadership 101, similar almost like the Civil War in China, Mao Zedong, Chiang Kai-shek, where Chiang Kai-shek retreated to Taiwan. Now, Taiwan, I don't know about the future of Taiwan, but it's lasted as an independent country for a long time. So what's my point in leadership? Sometimes you need to retreat. Washington, D.C., it's over, people. I've said this before. America first is a day late and a dollar short. You don't have a base. Ask yourself, you're a conservative American, red-blooded patriot. Where do you go? Where's your base? Where? Do you even have a state? What, Texas? Well, name me a red state. It's not. So the point is you need to understand that in order to make leadership change, you need to form your base. Interesting. I'm not a terrorism expert. Al-Qaeda translated in the base. You have to form your base. Much like Chiang Kai-shek said, we need to leave here and form in Taiwan. State politics is the future. So what I would say, instead of trying to flood Washington, D.C., become the next president, it ain't going to happen, people. Look at Donald Trump. He's bought and sold. Like even when I said, people are like, you see, you go up against Donald Trump like Massey did, and you're going down. Massey didn't go against Donald Trump. He went against Israel. And yeah, you go against Israel and the Jews, you're going down. So the part is Washington, D.C., it's over, people. The nation first or America, it's over. You're going to see it's going to get worse. We're going to go to some type of revolution, civil war. I would say flood a state. What is that state? I don't know yet. It's probably going to be a red state. It's probably going to be formulated a lot by white men. But what do you want to flood? The governor, the senators, the congressmen, the state police, the National Guard. And what will be the politics at that state? We'll just say South Dakota. Not like I know, but we'll just say South Dakota. And they say, hey, man, you're a conservative patriot from South Dakota. America first, right? No, South Dakota first. America second. You are going to start seeing that. And then what is going to be one of the biggest political pushes for that state? You don't want to pay federal taxes anymore, meaning sort of like it's going to be a secession where your governor is going to start pushing that. Now, you might have to pay more state taxes, but at least you have a handle on that. But like this Doge and fraud, from all the fraud that's going on throughout the United States government, you really think J.D. Vance and Doge is going to find it? Never going to be. So what's the best way to counter this fraud? Stop paying your taxes. And you're going to see that. You're going to see as the American empire starts fucking declining, you're going to see a couple red states get red hot. And they're going to start pushing up against federal law, to include the FBI, where you're going to see the governor say state law and federal law is going to come into battle. And the FBI is going to come and say, we have an arrest warrant for the governor. We have an arrest warrant for the senator, not in my fucking state. And then it might be to the point, just like a country like me, worried about leaving China. You may even be worried about leaving the state of South Dakota, being arrested by the FBI. But they're going to take that FBI office in your state, close it down. I mean, that's going to be the future. Going to Washington, D.C. So I'm telling you, New York is probably the definition of a toilet bowl. I'll admit it. I don't miss New York. I probably wouldn't even recognize New York if I went back. But I would rather live in New York than Washington, D.C. It was absolutely fucking atrocious. the amount of corruption, the narcissism. You think you're going to change Washington, D.C.? You ain't changing anything. It's the same thing. It's leadership 101. It's like, hey, guys, let's change the world. Okay. Before you change the world, try to change your country. Before you change your country, try to change your society. Before you change it, try to change your family. Before that, try to change yourself. Like, we need to clean up the world. Clean up the world. You can't even clean up your bedroom. Just clean up your bedroom first. But this whole thing about changing America, focus on the state. That's what I would do. Or leave America. This is a sinking ship. But this whole thing about we need to flood the FBI and the CIA and really change things and change. West Point's done, people. I've written my book. I'll do a video too on military schools with Pete Hegseth, the different. West Point is directly connected to Washington, D.C. It is one of the most politically lightning rods of military institutions. Whatever Washington, D.C. says, West Point follows. You're not changing it through West Point. Instead of joining the globalist American military, maybe join a state nationalist militia, maybe that, but it's state politics. I want to mention that because it's a pretty interesting leadership point that people aren't getting. This whole thing, like the way we got it, and taking advice from women. When have women been leaders in the history of mankind? 1% of the time, literally 1% of the time. So here we are taking advice from women. Our founding fathers made sure that the citizenship went to white men. Interesting formula on that. And now we're listening to women for leadership advice. How did this woman even get a platform? And yet I'm censored. I'm a military veteran. Do you see where it's going? This system's not working anymore. So we'll end it here and then we'll go back to the story. But I'm telling you, 2 things. I've said 3 things. 1, leave the country. And I'll do videos. More and more Americans are leaving. You're seeing it. This ship is sinking. 2, you could stay in America, but maybe get off the grid. I don't know, work out something, go to the country and just, you're in survival mode. Again, you're not paying taxes and you're living off the grid. But if you really want to change the system, get into politics, state politics is the future. You're going to see it. State politics is the future. And if sooner or later, you're going to need a governor, and the state is going to get so homogenous, just like Pete Hegseth talked about the military. Diversity is not our strength. Unity is our strength. You're right, Pete. Unity is our strength. And you're going to see that state get so red hot where they're going to be like, we don't recognize other Americans. We are South Dakotans. Again, I'm just giving this an example. And we come first. South Dakota first, America second. We don't care about other American citizens first. We care about South Dakotans first. And we are going to push. You're going to see a governor who's going to start pushing for secession, for no longer paying federal taxes. And they're going to push stuff like kicking the FBI out of their state. That's the future. So I say again, this woman it's just like Nick Fuentes. I mean, I put my leadership over them in a heartbeat. The future, if you want to flood the system, it's not Washington, D.C., and it's not at the federal level. The future of politics is at the state level. I've always said leadership, the best is yet to come. I've said that many times about Donald Trump. And I've given Donald Trump many accolades and many props. But I'm telling you, he's deviating, and I've said it many times. If you think Donald Trump is a good leader, you have not seen anything. The best is yet to come. And the best will be in a form of some type of governor where they're going to say, state. Just think about it. I don't want to spend too much time. I see Giovanni's here. Let me look at some comments here. The largest international debt. It's hard to read so fast for fame, and you've got the comments. But anyway, picture this scenario again. What if all of a sudden a state got, because you see it all the time, people are leaving blue states. They don't have loyalty to states. Remember I said that? You were born and raised in California. How dare you leave and move to Texas? You should be loyal to California. People would be like, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to Texas for a better life. If all of a sudden there's a state, and I guarantee there are because people don't know, but state law is not uniform. Different states, how they were formed in the Union, their state law is written a little differently. And I'm telling you, once you get constitutional scholars and state scholars, there could be all of a sudden a state that says, based upon our state constitution founded in, 1802, we can exempt from paying federal taxes. So if you come to this state, no more federal taxes, but you got to pay some state taxes. You don't think people would flood that state? Flood it. And then all of a sudden they say, we're going to secede from the Union. And it's that meaning at the end of the day, let's not bullshit each other. We are not loyal to this thing called America. We're not even loyal to Americans because, one, we don't know who Americans are, and we really don't give a fuck about military veterans, my case alone. So if all of a sudden a state made it sound like it was a really good opportunity, but they were going to secede, people would jump on it. For the same reason, I don't think people don't want to leave America for patriotism. People don't want to leave America because it's scary, it's hard, it takes a lot of money, it's not easy. And people are like, I disagree with you, David. I was born and raised in America, and I'm a patriot, and that's what patriot is. Well, if that was the attitude, America would have never been formed. Our forefathers were born and raised in Europe. If they used your mentality, they should have never left Europe. But they looked at Europe and they said, fuck this, I'm going to America for a better life. They left. And I'm telling you, most Americans are not leaving America, not because they're like, I don't want to, because many times they're afraid. It's a scary thing. They don't have the money or the resources or the knowledge. But there are a lot of places that are better than America if you have the resources. And I guarantee Americans are leaving anyway. So I've talked about enough on that. Let's go to this. Let's do a quick video. We only did 30 minutes. Let's do a quick video on Tulsa Gabbard. Now, everyone knows my views on the military. I've changed a lot on military veteran status. It's about a 50-50, meaning 50% of military veterans, and all this could be blamed on the officer corps. When I speak negatively on the military, make it known, I focus on the officer corps, not the enlisted, and particularly on West Point, meaning if the military has turned bad, incompetent, corrupt, weak, well, you don't blame the enlisted, you blame the officers, and you go straight to West Point. But I'll do a story on Pete Hegseth. I'm not necessarily against. He's going in the right direction with this military. It's not going to work. But anyway, my sense of loyalty to the military officer corps, I don't know, 50-50, sort of like that. But I do think Tulsa, let's face it, Tulsa Gabbard, but I think Tulsa Gabbard and Joe Kent, I do believe there was a sense of their morality, that they don't feel like they were principally aligned with Donald Trump, and they did the right thing. People won't fucking quit these jobs. I'm telling you, people don't do it. So I understand her husband may have some cancer, and I get that. But this is actually giving her a compliment. I think that could be a little bit of a charade, that I think maybe her and President Trump butted heads, and her principles are not aligned to Donald Trump, which makes sense. Because what Donald Trump is doing, it's not, and oh, by the way, we don't have time to talk about Iran. It's going to go to shit. People are like, you watch, the Iran peace deal is going to get signed. It's going to be a raw deal, people. I'm telling you, give it time. Same thing with Afghanistan, Iraq. You know who's going to win out in the end? China will do a better deal than us. But a lot of people are like, Donald Trump is the deal maker. We bombed the shit out of the country, but now we did a deal. He succeeded. Quick to do victory. But that's what I think would happen to Tulsi. And if that's the case, similar to Joe Kent, I've got a lot of respect for him for that. Anyway, let's just do a little bit on her right here.
Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard was a contentious pick to be Director of National Intelligence, clearly shown by the close Senate vote to confirm her. In announcing her departure on social media, U.S. President Donald Trump said she would be caring for her husband, who was recently diagnosed with a rare form of bone cancer. There have been questions about her status within the administration after appearing before this Senate committee, which seemed to undercut the president's reasons for going to war with Iran. Her written testimony said Iran's nuclear program had been obliterated and the Iranians had made no effort to rebuild it. She skipped that part when reading her testimony.
You omitted that paragraph from your oral opening. Was that because the president had said there was an imminent threat 2 weeks?
No, sir. I recognize that the time was running long, and I skipped through some of the portions.
So you chose to take
my oral delivered remarks.
Gabbard was controversial long before joining the Trump administration. As a Democratic member of Congress, she visited Syria, releasing this video of what she called her fact-finding mission, later casting doubt that the Assad regime used chemical weapons on the Syrian people. She ran for president as a Democrat in 2019, dropping out and endorsing Vice President Joe Biden in his race against Trump.
Help heal the divisiveness that has been tearing our country apart.
She once sold T-shirts saying "No war with Iran," and it's believed to be Trump's promise to avoid foreign wars, which switched her allegiance.
I'm proud to stand here with you today, President Trump, and announce that I'm joining the Republican Party.
Campaigning for him and then serving as his DNI. overseeing the 18 U.S. intelligence agencies. Gabbard.
So interesting. So notice what I said, there were 16. Oh, so here's my guess. I believe it's Space Force is 17, and I believe cyber. I think we have a cyber command. So when I was in it, it was 16. Again, I worked on what's called the Big Five, but there's 16 altogether. And now I think notice it keeps getting bigger, keeps getting bigger. This is your taxpayer money. These intelligence and government. Notice that was something too we thought Trump was going to do. I'm telling you, the government is bloated. It's bloated. It is time to start defunding the government. What has Trump done? Bigger and bigger, bigger, more military, more FBI, more. All right, it is what it is. So now it's a total of 18 different intelligence agencies. Okay, let's see how that goes.
Who rallied against foreign wars, announcing her resignation, while the U.S. is still trying to find a way to end its latest one in Iran. Patty Culhane, Al Jazeera, Washington.
So, one second. You don't think there might be a correlation too, where Trump is like, we got to wrap this thing up. We need Cuba. We need Greenland. I'm telling you, I have no doubt about it, because it brings back, history does repeat. People say it rhymes, whatever you want to call it, but it does. In Harvard in 2007, I was speaking to these dumb, most of them are Republicans, just like when Trump said these rhinos. You think these rhinos are done? Sometimes they just transform. A lot of these are MAGA. But anyway, back in 2007, there I was talking about the Afghanistan-Iraq war. What do you think? How did it go? You think Iran? I am telling you, this deal is going to be a raw deal for Americans. It's just not. You're going to see it. They're going to keep, and I don't blame Iran. If I was Iran too, I'd say, you don't tell me what I have to do in my own country. We'll see where this goes. Anyway, I'm going to do a little bit about the the Director of National Intelligence, my work there. And then we're going to go into this story a little bit about the FBI with the CIA people, because it also relates to my story. And what I'm saying is when I was working, in some ways, you know what my job was in the Director of National Intelligence? If you've ever worked in the private sector doing a merger and acquisition, it was very similar to a merger acquisition, except instead of dealing with private companies, you're dealing with government agencies where, again, you're trying to merge the FBI and the CIA and the NSA in terms of how the intelligence protocols can work in a centralized fashion, meaning Director of National Intelligence. So again, there was this new agency formed by Donald Trump, but everyone knows you get this agency formed, but you have to understand, what are the roles? What are the responsibilities? Where's the budget? Where's the power? How is this going to be integrated? Because at the end of the day, the President of the United States wants to look at the Director of National Intelligence and say, what's going on? And that person needs to have that collective, integrated fashion of intelligence. So it is pretty complicated. There's no doubt about it. And I agree with it. But when I was there too, it was, again, during the war on terror. So I was also doing my job thinking, this is bullshit. But if you remember, the same reason I'm talking about Iran, I've been in this situation. I was in Washington, D.C., working for the Director, saying to myself, I think this war in not Iran, I think this war in Iraq and Afghanistan, I think it's going to go to shit. We don't have a point. Do you know how many people thought I was retarded? I don't know. Look at how we do. The same thing is going to happen in Iran. And who's going to make out, if you go back, because remember, China's foreign policy and America's foreign policy is different. America's foreign policy, we're kind of like the bully. First, we give you orders. You do this, you do that, and then we bomb the shit out of you. Okay. You know what China says? We don't care about your government. I don't know, you're an evil dictator that I don't know, tortures people. China doesn't really care. And all China says is, we didn't bring our military, we brought our corporations. Now, again, the Chinese corporations are different than the American globalist corporations. The Chinese corporations work for the Chinese government. So when they go in there, all they want to do is business. That's it. They're like, whatever you do in your country, political or whatever, we don't care. It's laissez-faire. Let's just make money. So use common sense. Who has a more of a optimistic or you could say a win-win in foreign policy? What do? I could tell you something. Under Donald Trump's regime, if I was foreign countries, I'd build nuclear weapons. I would build nuclear weapons because I'd say, if we don't have a nuclear weapon, we're probably going to get invaded by the American military. as much, and I've said this many times, the Chinese military is growing. It's building 100%. At the size currently of the American, not even close. It's not even close. I mean, America, we are the war machine, however much we talk about it. So anyway, I mention that because there's many times it's deja vu that I'm feeling of my time. Remember the war on terror? Well, I guess we're still doing the war on terror with Iran. Okay, have fun. It's gonna be a raw deal anyway. Let's talk about this Kiriakou. And what I want to do is, when I first went on social media, I heard that there were FBI whistleblowers. I was so happy because there were 3 reasons that I never went public in 2007. One, it's just not my personality. I don't even want to do this stuff. I mean, literally, all I want to do, in fact, if the FBI contacted me and they said, hey, David, here's the deal. Shut down your social media. Not like you got such social media. Shut it down and end your book. It's a shit book and throw it in the garbage. Your passport's fine. We're not going to fuck with you anymore. We're going to leave you alone, but shut everything down. You know what I would do? Roger that. You don't fuck with these people. So one of the reasons I didn't go public is you don't mess with the FBI. I knew that. In fact, if I had an what's the word I'm looking for? An edge on my shoulder, a tick on my shoulder, a grumpy on my shoulder. I forget what it's called. But if you've got a axe to grind, then as soon as I left the FBI, I was at Harvard. People would have said, yeah, this guy David, man, at Harvard, all he did was complain about the FBI. Never said a word. Never said a word. People at Harvard either one, did not even know I worked for the FBI, or if they found out and they said, why'd you quit? I gave a very politically correct answer, which was also the truth. I said, hey, it's a great agency. I just want to go in the private sector. So I never had an axe to grind. So number one, it's not my personality. Number one. 2, don't mess with the FBI. But number 3, I thought no one would believe me. So then when I heard these FBI whistleblowers, I said, this is phenomenal. There are other people in the FBI that saying the FBI is corrupt. Because what I'm trying to tell you is, I don't know how old you are, but when I grew up in America, if you said the government's corrupt, either there were 2 things. You're really one of these like conspiracy theories, everything's corrupt, the world is going down, or I don't know, you just got screwed over by the government. So, but most people growing up, the government's the government. It's not perfect. You heard this, but it's not corrupt. Now, well, I mean, even Donald Trump has said it, the president, he said that the system is corrupt. Now, though, it's getting more and more common. Our government's corrupt. And that's why even my story, like, David, are you sure, the FBI is corrupt? It's 100%. But the point is ask yourself, remember I said the 3 reasons America's going to collapse: debt, inequality, and corruption. But I could tell you something, now it is becoming more mainstream where CIA is corrupt, FBI is, and oh, by the way, as much as I said I like Donald Trump, the amount of corruption, we're talking money-wise, of him and his rich family, it could be off the record books. Meaning Donald Trump could quite possibly be off the record books as the most corrupt president in terms of economic deals for his private affairs. It's unbelievable. I mean, from his shit coins to these deals, even his own family investing in military companies that are directly involved with this Iran conflict. I mean, the amount of billions and billions of dollars the Trump family has made off insider trading in the White House, it's probably off record books now. But I think now, if you're an American, be like, I think you're speaking a little bit off kilter. I think you're exaggerating. The government's corrupt. I think now, if you say the government's not corrupt, now I think it's the opposite. I think now you're crazy. For the same reason, when I left in 2010, I talked about civil war, revolution. That was kind of edgy. It was kind of edgy, and I really kept it to myself. You give it time. You give it another 10 years, and people are like, holy fuck, we're going to go to civil war. So anyway, we're going to now talk with this John Kiriakou. You've probably seen CIA, and he talks about the corruption in the FBI. But many people, or like when I first came out on videos, they're like, maybe he was just a bad FBI. No, it's not. I left the FBI for incompetency and corruption. End of story. I just didn't want to be part of it. Anyway, let's go to some of these videos here. I think they're pretty interesting. And I'm going to show you what happened to me with the FBI when it comes to surveillance. But first, let's just go with this. This is, again, remember, the Trump people loved me before Trump was elected. because I would say stuff that the FBI was corrupt. They loved it because that's what Trump said. But now that Kash Patel is in charge, problem fixed. So that's why the MAGA people don't like me saying the FBI is corrupt now. Why? Because it's Trump's FBI. It's Kash Patel. I'm telling you, it's still corrupt.
FBI director, and I don't think Kash Patel can be the FBI director and anything ever happened with these Epstein files, because he testified in the Senate that Jeffrey Epstein acted alone. Even Melania Trump does not believe that. And then the next day, he came to the House Judiciary Committee where I asked him to double down. And he said there's no evidence in these files that anybody was a co-conspirator with Jeffrey Epstein other than Ghislaine Maxwell. He's perjured himself in the Senate and the House. His only defense is to say, well, when I told you that, I didn't really know what was in the files, or the people working for me misled me. That's why I think you will never get to the bottom of this as long as he's FBI director.
I've always said this, if you consider yourself a patriot, what is a sense of patriotism? Well, patriotism is a sense of loyalty. So if you're a patriotic son, if you're a loyal son, who should you be loyal to? Who should you be patriotic to, respectful to? Your father. That's a good sign. Are you a loyal son? Well, let's ask the father. Well, patriotism is to the country. And so who is the countrymen? Your forefathers. Who would they be? Well, George Washington, the founding fathers. Well, who founded the FBI? Well, J. Edgar Hoover, the first director, without a doubt. And oh, by the way, as much as the cross-dress, I get you, there's weird stories about him. I'm not going to defend him. I don't know. It's actually a very sensitive topic in the FBI, especially with the older generation. The new generation FBI is different. Why? Because as the FBI continues to go, J. Edgar Hoover is going to be removed. Don't think so? 100%. For the same reason that in the military, the Confederate generals were replaced, J. Edgar Hoover only allowed white men in the FBI. That was it. And so I'm telling you, you give it time, J. Edgar Hoover's name is going to be removed. But if you look to the FBI, and I believe there was a time, I don't think people understand how powerful the FBI was in a positive way, because that's why, unlike Kash Patel, who just takes orders from the president, there's an interesting constitutional flux between how the FBI conducts themselves versus the CIA, the State Department, the military. I've said many times, cabinet members take their marching orders from the president. They serve at the behest of the president. That wasn't that way with the FBI. That's why the FBI had this sort of independent role. That's why J. Edgar Hoover was more powerful than the president. Was J. Edgar Hoover corrupt? Yup. Was he a racist? Absolutely. But was he competent? And was he a patriotic nationalist? He was. He was. J. Edgar Hoover would have never allowed Kash Patel, this man from India. Remember India? Well, diversity is our strength. I would never allow an Indian man to be the FBI director. But if you go back to the FBI at one time, that was. I'll do stories if people are interested, the whole CIA, the FBI thing. But at the time, FBI, they had law enforcement, domestic intelligence, and foreign intelligence. The very first CIA officers were FBI agents stationed abroad. And that was what really pissed off J. Edgar Hoover, because it got into his territory. But I don't think people understood how powerful J. Edgar Hoover was. Corrupt, but he was a nationalist. That's why I go back to the southern border with this director Ray. And that's another thing. J. Edgar Hoover never got fired. I mean, these FBI directors are getting fired. And if the Democrats get elected, not like I'm a fan of the Democrats, I'm going to laugh when Kash Patel gets shit canned, because he should. Kash Patel's a piece of shit, just like Dan Bongino. Don't think so? You don't think they know about me? Use common sense. So is the FBI competent or not? Well, they're competent. Okay. And you're telling me they're not? Of course they know about me. They know. In fact, Dan Bongino blocked me yet again on X. It's like little kids. But anyway, back to the J. Edgar Hoover. If J. Edgar Hoover, like I told you, the southern border of the Democrats, J. Edgar Hoover would have take charge. He would have said the southern border is a national security threat, terrorists, spies coming in there, and he would have overrode it. That border would have been sealed. So Director Ray, horrible. I'm very happy he got shit canned. Kash Patel, this guy needs to fucking go. Also, I'm not very impressed with Kash Patel's resume. I've said many times, I'm not impressed with normal FBI agents' resumes. 50% of them should be fired. Kash Patel, as the director of the FBI, the number one guy, I'm actually not very impressed with his resume, let alone him being an Indian man. But if you disagree with me, let's see where this goes. But let's go back to the FBI story here. Pretty interesting.
FBI called me. I was sitting at my computer one morning writing an op-ed, and the FBI called me, and I looked at my phone and it said Federal Bureau of Investigation. And I thought, what in the world is that? So I answered it. I said, hi, this is John. May I help you? And he says, hi, this is Special Agent, I forget what. Do you remember that case that you helped us out with when you were on Capitol Hill? Because remember, I didn't know that this Japanese guy was an FBI agent yet. I said, sure.
This is so freaking bonkers. Yeah.
And he said, well, we have another case and we need your help. And I said, because I'm an idiot and a patriot, I said, anything for the FBI. What do you want from me? That's what I told him. He said, can you come down here tomorrow at 10? I said, absolutely. So I went at 10 o'clock and I said, what do you want me to do? I said,
Was this to the FBI building downtown?
Yes. I said, is it what, the Russians? Who is it? Well, before we get to that, he says, wanted to ask you, I just read your book, which was a lie. I had a book that had come out 2 years earlier. I just read your book and I just want to ask you a couple of questions. And it was all about the torture program. And I'm getting more and more nervous. And finally,
What were the questions?
well, when you were in Pakistan and you were describing this piece of technology, did you get that cleared by the CIA? I said, of course I got it cleared. I said, it took me 9 months to write that book and 22 months to get it cleared at the CIA's Publications Review Board. Well, what about this guy? You mentioned this guy. Do you remember? You just say John Doe. Do you remember his name? I'm like, yeah, I remember his name. And then I said, what are we talking about here? And then one of them said, well, we probably should tell you that as we're speaking right now, we're raiding your house. We're confiscating all of your electronics. And
Holy shit.
you're going to be charged with a lot of crimes.
What?
That's what he said. And thank God.
Wait, as you were talking, they were raiding your house?
My wife later told me that as soon as I got on the metro to go to the FBI, they just broke down the door
Was she home?
with our 2-month-old son. Yep. And then one of the female
I don't think
FBI
drain the
agents.
swamp. Drain the
please-
swamp is
please
not
drain the
is
swamp.
not strong enough.
No,
Burn
it's
it
not.
down.
Burn it down. Burn it down.
Yes.
This is neither here nor there because my opinion.
And how is Trump doing draining the swamp? We have MAGA people like, he's drained the swamp. He's fixed the FBI. You have MAGA people saying this already. He's done it, people. It's like Jesus Christ is down. The miracle has happened. Donald Trump has drained the swamp and we've accomplished this. Yeah, keep dreaming on that.
Is not important. But when Kash Patel was named the director of the FBI, I wrote an op-ed in for a leftist news outlet celebrating this appointment, saying this is exactly what we need to do. We need to tear the place down to its studs. If there's going to be a federal law enforcement organization, this one needs to be scrapped and rebuilt, and nobody else has the guts to do it.
Yeah. Let's build them a new headquarters, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Kansas, maybe.
Yeah, at Leavenworth.
Oh, excuse me. One final sentence. I thank God that I had the presence of mind to say, I want to speak to my attorney, and I'm not saying anything else. And that was the only reason they didn't put the cuffs on me right there. So I said, I want to leave. And I got up and they said, just a minute. I said, no, if I'm not under arrest, that means I'm free to leave. And as I walked out, Peter Strzok was standing there and he said, did he implicate himself? And the guy says, not really, but I'll tell you about it in a second. And he turned to me and he said, you're free to go.
Did you have any idea what this was about?
No idea. They charged me with.
This is like a bad dream.
It was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. I went outside. I called my lawyer. He told me, come to the office immediately. I went, told him everything that happened. He told me, try to take it easy. I said, this is a death penalty case. He said, just take it easy. They're not going to seek
What
the
was
death
happening?
penalty.
Did you call home and ask your wife? What was going on?
Yeah, and she was just wonderful. She was as calm as I wished I could be. And she said, the FBI's here. I said, I know. I said, are they treating you with respect? And she said, well, one of the female agents said, "Why don't you sit with that beautiful baby and don't get up?"
Yeah, why don't you go fuck yourself?
Exactly.
Actually, excuse me. Sorry.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
talking that way to your wife with a newborn baby.
Mm-hmm. And then within hours, of course, they leak it to the media immediately. So within hours, all 4 of my clients, and these were like household name clients that I had for this consulting business I was trying to get up and running, all 4 of them dropped me.
That day?
That day. And then immediately.
Profiles Encourage Award.
Oh,
Okay.
I'll tell you. The phone, we counted actually. We got something like 65 or 67 calls from the media that night. I just shut my phone off. We unplugged we had landlines back then. One of the local networks put a truck in front of our house with a spotlight on the house.
No
Oh,
way.
it was humiliating. Just utterly humiliating.
And I just want to say for the 5th time, because at this point, I mean, you're being treated like El Chapo. Okay.
Yeah.
Your only crime was an ABC interview with Brian Ross in 2007, in which you say, yes, the CIA does have a torture program. I know because I worked there, and the president authorized it and lied about it in public. That's your sum total of your crimes.
That was it.
So what I'm going to tell you a story. We're going to go back to video on my time in the FBI, 2 stories, and then this. I didn't have a good time with the management. It started out fine, and then I just knew, I said it just wasn't for me. And again, I was never terminated from the FBI, nor was I forced out or coerced out, because it is very difficult to terminate a federal employee, even because also I have what's called military veteran protection. So if you're a military veteran in the government, you're protected even more. I just didn't want to do it. And what happened was, and this goes into FBI spying on American citizens, surveillance. So I'm going to tell you part 1. Part 2 is going to be what John Kiriakou, and then I'm going to give you part 3. I knew the FBI was spying on me while I was an agent in the FBI. How did I know that? Because you got to remember, it's going to go to part 2. I put in my paperwork to leave. I planned on going that. I was going to Harvard, so the Harvard program was starting. I put in my paperwork. They didn't know that at the time in terms of the timing. So all of a sudden, after I dropped my paperwork that I'm leaving the FBI, I see 2 special agents. Both I sort of knew, but they were on the espionage squad. And they said, "Hey, David, can we talk to you in a private room?" And I could tell something was very odd. And again, I dropped my paperwork. I'm leaving the FBI. So at this time, I'm really like, I just want to get the hell out of this agency. But I'm like, this is weird. So they pull us in. They said, "Listen, we just found out you're leaving the FBI. And before you want to go, we need to ask you some really important questions." Now, at this time, because when you're working for a company, whether you work for the government or in a corporation, and they do, I've worked this when I was with Boeing and Amazon, you do what's called corporate investigations, corporate inquiries. When you're working for a company, you can't plead the 5th so much. You know, if you're under a company investigation, the boss could say, well, you know, whatever, who stole the cookie jar in the company kitchen? I'm making a joke here. And if you work in a company, you're like, I do not want to say anything. Okay, you're fired. You know, meaning you only have so many, because again, there's a difference between a criminal investigation and you could say a corporate investigation. Well, this wasn't a criminal investigation because I've never done anything criminal. And if I was going to stay in the FBI, I would need to do this. It turned into an interrogation. I'll get through it. But because I already dropped my paperwork, I was leaving the FBI. Everything was voluntary. I didn't have to do anything. And so I said, sure. Because at first I was just very interested, like, what's going on? Because I knew, and one day I'll tell, it's written in my book. If anyone's interested in my book, I've written it in there. But I'm telling you, the bad blood that I have in the FBI, and I've said this many times, just think about it this: when you understand leadership, if the macrocosm is confusing, focus on the microcosm. And what would be the microcosm? Picture a typical traffic cop stopping you in the car for whatever. You were speeding or you went through a stop sign. But cop A is your brother-in-law. And cop B, for whatever reason, fucking hates your guts. Personality. And most people would say it doesn't matter, personalities, the law is the law, the regulation's the regulation. It's all going to come out the same. Yeah, welcome to the world of reality. That's not how it works. The brother-in-law would be like, hey, dude, have a good day, whatever. The other cop, he can make your life a living hell. He can say, let me check this. Oh, we got lights out, this and that. And before you know it, he's egging you on. You're pissed off. Then he arrests you. Then you punch him. Who knows? But the point is, don't fool yourself that there's personalities involved. And I'm telling you, over 50% of my case is the FBI fucking does not like me. And I don't like them for many reasons. Even when I left the FBI, they're like, you have to sign this paperwork. I said, I'm not signing shit, like out processing. I'm gone. So anyway, we do this interview, which turned into an interrogation. So first I was like, what's going on? These guys are on the espionage squad. I'm like, what do you have to know? They're like, well, we need to talk to you now because we found out you're going to be leaving. Like, I think I was going to be leaving like in a week or a couple of days. I dropped my paperwork. And they started asking me all these questions. And I started to realize, how do you know that? Like, hey, when you were at your home last night and with this woman named Dick, I'm like, and then I just realized, I said, have you been going in my computer? Have you been going in my phone? Am I under surveillance at my home? And so one of the guys was a former Marine Corps officer. I'm telling you, and yet they're all yes men. They're basically all yes men. But even he felt a little embarrassed. Like he's like, yeah. I said, holy shit, you went through all that stuff. And I said, you watched me have sex with her. You probably read all the emails. Nothing I did was illegal. Nothing I did I'm really embarrassed for. I'm not like some sexual pervert. But there's comes a time that privacy is privacy. And so once we started doing, I said, are you fucking kidding me? You did that? They were in my phones, in my work computer, in my private computer, tapped my phone, my view car, the FBI car, in my house. All that. I was dating multiple girls at that time. It is what it is, but they knew everything on that. And I was like, you motherfuckers. And I told them, I said, what the hell do you think you were going to find? And they didn't find shit on me. But I'm telling you, when you're under surveillance by the government, damages will occur. You have no clue how much fucking damage. You hear these retarded people. Well, David, if you haven't done anything illegal, don't worry about it. Let the government spy on you. These people are retarded. Damages come. Heavy damages come. I've lost work. I've said many times, think about this example. Picture you having a next door neighbor, and you guys are good friends. You've known each other for 10 years. Barbecues, you babysit their kids, they babysit your kids. You get the story, good friends. All of a sudden, the FBI, and this is the difference between MI5 and the Scotland Yard, where in the FBI, they'll combine it. Where this is the illegal practice of FISA, where they might not even have evidence of you being a terrorist or a spy, but they'll still do it. Now, if you're a foreign national, I'm fine with that, but you're a U.S. citizen. They went back to the story. Now they go to your neighbor, very clandestine, very secret. You don't know about it. They give them like $10,000, $20,000, say, hey, we just have to have a private meeting with you. We know you know your neighbor for about 10 years. Tell us about him. Tell us all about him. Now, your neighbors are talking, it could be for the first time in their life, they're talking to FBI agents about the neighbor. And then your neighbor's wife, the typical, I'm making a joke here, but you can imagine the scene. They're like, she'd be like, Harry, I knew it. I knew they were terrorists. And the FBI is like, well, we just need to get information. Tell us, what are they doing? Where are they going? Do you think you could put a bug in their house the next time you go over there? And they're going to pay them money. You wouldn't imagine how many people will sell you out for money. My own fucking piece of shit West Point commander, my fucking commander in the military, sold me out. You know who you are, you piece of shit. The FBI paid him fucking money and he sold me out. This government is going to shit. This is another reason why my story is being censored, because it's just very bad. People don't want to see this stuff. They don't want to think about West Point's duty on our country. These people are a piece of shit. Many other West Point classmates spied on my own West Point fucking commander that I went down range with, that piece of shit. Took money from the FBI to fucking spy on me. Anyway, back to the story with the neighbors. Now the FBI does that. Do you think your neighbor, because of course everyone's going to believe the FBI. That's how it is. It's the same thing that when I was terminated from Boeing, I had to rely on the fucking Chinese government for them to say I was illegally terminated. No one will believe me. Everyone's like, Boeing is a prestigious company. if you were terminated from Boeing, you must have been doing something wrong. Same thing with the FBI. So the neighbors come in there and they say, they're under investigation by the FBI. They must be bad people. We're going to trust the FBI. One, they're giving us a lot of money. And two, we don't want to fuck with the FBI. Your relationship will never be the same with them. What do you think that's going to happen now with your bosses, everything? It ends. This move, after that, one of the things, I don't want to get into so many details. I want to protect the people. This could have been at a Saturday Night Live. One of the women that I was having an intimate relationship, that I was actually thinking maybe we're going to have a long-term relationship, I thought to myself, maybe I should tell her. So to get to the point, we did the interrogation, and then they said, would you be willing to do a polygraph? I didn't have to, because I was leaving the FBI. I was like, I don't have to. I'm gone. And I even said, I'm never going to work for the government ever again. I don't give a fuck. But I volunteered to do the polygraph, and I passed, by the way. But I'm not going to get into all the details because I'm big into privacy. Obviously, I'm not going to tell her name. But there was one particular woman that you could say it was more than friends with benefits, and I had feelings for. And I said, oh my God, they got into her computer, her phones, everything about her, all her, she had her own sexual things and this. And I said, it was so fucking embarrassing. This was the story. This could have been in Saturday Night Live. So at that time, I only had a couple more days on leaving the FBI. Now I'm flying to Boston. Literally within a couple of days, I'm flying to Boston to begin my Harvard program. So we had planned to say goodbye. She's going to fly out to Harvard to see me. Meaning it was one of those relationships that we could have something potential. Looking back, and it's the same story in my book when I talked to my Yoda, the mentor, and I got into a very particular incident, and he said, shut your mouth, don't say anything. And I decided to speak. The same thing happened here. I thought maybe to the other girls, I didn't say anything. It is what it is. It's embarrassing. But for this girl, I thought maybe I should tell her. And what was I going to tell her? Well, like I did, maybe I said, listen, we had a meeting, and I said, listen, I don't know how to tell you this, but you need to get a new computer, new phone. And I told her some things to do to change her lifestyle. I said, the government's been spying on you. At that time, she didn't know I was in the FBI. So she's like, what? She's like, what do you mean the government's been spying on me? I said, the FBI has been spying on you. I said, you haven't done anything wrong, but the sex thing, and they know about it. This girl freaks out. And then she's like, how do you know the FBI has been spying on me? Well, I'm an FBI agent. Well, actually, no, I was an FBI agent. I quit. I'm not anymore. And she's just looking at me like, what the fuck are you talking about? The relationship ended right there. I think she thought I was on drugs or something. It was the most comical and just retarded conversation. I think she probably thought that maybe I was a married man, and I tried to come up with the most crazy excuse to maybe break up the relationship. She didn't believe anything that I said, and that relationship fucking just ended right there. And it's the same thing I wrote in the book. Looking back, I probably just shouldn't have said anything to her. And maybe today we'll be married, and I just should have shut my mouth. But I'm telling you, this is what happens. Now, what I'm going to do is we're going to show you a quick video on John Kiriakou. Now, he's CIA. The CIA and the FBI, we work together to train each other. We track spies. The CIA tries to evade the Federal Secret Service, meaning the FBI. So we play cat and mouse games many times. We know it. Like the CIA will come up with scenarios where a CIA agent in training, they'll fly into a city, and that city in America will be sort of like a pretend like you're in a hostile country. And the FBI will only have so much information. The CIA will only have so much information. And we'll play, for lack of a better word, spy games. And our goal is to locate him, and his job is to evade us. That's kind of how it works. The reason I'm saying this is John Kiriakou, from what I know about him, now I never met him. I don't know anything about him when I was in intelligence. I just known about him on social media. But he comes across as a very legitimate, capable intelligence officer. I want you to hear this part, and then I'm going to tell you my story of what happened in Chicago.
Determined that because we have a law, they investigated me for a year, And the Justice Department determined that because we have a law in this country saying that it is illegal to classify a crime, and torture is a crime, that I hadn't committed any crime.
It was a brief little piece that says, there's an illegal in the United States by the name of Jack Barsky. He lives in the Northeast. That FBI just checked the Social Security files, and it turns out that I had applied for Social Security at the age of 40.
Charge him with espionage. And Holder wrote back and said, my people don't think he committed espionage. Brennan wrote back and said, charge him anyway and make him defend himself. So they investigated me for 3 more years, tapped my phones, intercepted.
Okay, so this is the part I want you to listen to. So the FBI had him under surveillance. Now, this is a trained CIA officer. I want you to see what he says, and then I'm going to tell you my part.
Accepted my emails, followed me everywhere I went for 3 years.
You were aware of this?
I was not.
They took their good time, because if they had gotten too close to me, I would have noticed. I had forgotten that I was a spy at one point.
I thought it was over because we got a declination letter from DOJ saying, we found no crime, you're free to go.
You're a super sophisticated guy. You followed people yourself.
I was an instructor in surveillance.
And you weren't aware that they were following you for 3 years? They were that good?
Not around my own house. It's just I wasn't looking for it. Overseas, I was constantly looking in my side view mirrors, constantly. Not in Arlington, Virginia.
Because here's the thing. It's not because they cared so much about us. If there was not a track record that they would get the people out of jail, nobody would sign up for this thing. Very high probability that people like me would wind up in jail.
And you didn't have any friends whispering to you, say, hey, John?
Nobody said a word.
Flipped his ID and said to me, FBI, we would like to have a talk with you.
So they arrested me in January of 2012, charged me with 5 felonies, including 3 counts of espionage, which can carry the death penalty.
So how would they get you out?
Concocted something that they didn't do, put it out in the public, and the United States typically was nice enough to the people that were caught innocently or doing something really stupid.
They waited until I went bankrupt from legal fees, and then they dropped the espionage charge. I hadn't committed espionage. Telling ABC News that the CIA is committing crimes, that's not espionage.
Get out of the situation with the least amount of damage. I have to cooperate as much as I can.
So how do you end up inside, though?
Because they told me that they had dropped the charges without prejudice, and if I didn't take a plea, they had to save face. If I didn't take a plea to a lesser charge, they were going to recharge me.
So I want you to think, again, we're going to tell my story. Notice how he said too about save face. My story is really embarrassing to the government, shameful. They don't want to do this. I'm telling you, I mean, again, one day I'll do the Pat Tillman story. The government has such a strong incentive to continue to make the public believe they are the good guys. They don't want stories like this coming out, even if it's the truth. But notice what he said, they have to save face. It's the same thing with my scenario. Not like I fucking care, like I really ever wanted to come out. Again, if the FBI called me today and said, listen, shut down all social media, shut down your book, not like it's even selling my book, it just shut down everything, we're going to leave you alone. I'd say, roger that. You don't mess with these people. And a lot of these dumb MAGA people, these are the same MAGA people, like, I support military veterans. Trump, no, it's not. It's not. It's a complete lie. But we'll keep going, and then I'll tell my story.
With espionage. If I'm convicted of espionage, what am I looking at? And they said 12 to 18 years.
And when I passed the lie detector test, they told me that there was a path to a green card and eventually citizenship. So now I'm illegal American.
Your problem is you think this is about justice, and it's not about justice. It's about mitigating damage. Take the deal. So I took the deal.
So you're dealing with an American government that deals with power. Think about it. If you think I'm wrong, part about understanding how people work is, how are we dealing overseas with foreign adversaries or even our allies? Power. There's no global system anymore. We are stronger than them. Our military is stronger than them. Might makes right. If anyone doesn't see it, it's so obvious. Guess what? That's exactly how they'll do with American citizens. Might makes right. This government is not interested in searching for justice. This government is interested in, first and foremost, protecting the regime, without a doubt. Think about it. If Donald Trump did not get elected, lost the election, whether it was fabricated or it was a real loss, meaning to Kamala Harris. What do you think Donald Trump would be saying? Take down this regime, corrupt, the police are corrupt, fight back. But now that he's the president, he's the king, it's hard for him to say the system's corrupt because he's the king now. Notice it changes. So anyway, first couple points is one, this is a trained CIA officer. If the FBI, if you were living in America and you're under surveillance from the FBI, there is a 99+% you're never going to know. Remember my story when I was in there? I never knew. They have so many resources and they're so highly trained that if you're being spied upon in America, you'll never know. You'll never know about this stuff. There are so many cases that you will never know, and you'll probably never be able to catch them. My case was different. And in fact, the FBI now is probably taking notes because they still are amazed. What happened in Chicago to me when I was under surveillance in the FBI, it is so embarrassing to the FBI. It's so criminal in nature to the FBI, and it reeks of, again, corruption on how this government is just a regime. So when I was in, now, first of all, the reason why I started realizing that I'm under investigation in the FBI is when you're living overseas in China, the FBI doesn't have that much power. I mean, if you're living in Russia or you're living in China, so the FBI has to do what's called extraordinary measures. And when they do, they'll leave trail and you'll be able to collect that. But if I was living in America, like probably you are, it's 99%, it never will happen. So I knew something was going on. I've said it, I'm under investigation. But truth be told, when I arrived in Chicago, I was detained, I was searched, all my electronics were searched, I was interrogated. This was at the Customs and Border. That was delegated by the FBI, meaning the Customs and Border agents probably never knew what happened. And I've told this story before, but I want to relate it to this, meaning just how easy it is for the FBI to put you under surveillance as a U.S. citizen where there's no evidence of a crime, meaning this is why the FISA is unconstitutional. You'll never know. You'll never know. People are like, I'm telling you, never know. So for me, like I said, I went through the Chicago airport, detained, searched, interrogated, and my phone was manipulated. There was they put an electronic app on it. But I got to admit, when I left, and remember, I was in Chicago for the lawsuit with Boeing. I was there. I was suing Boeing. What a corrupt company that was. But when I was there, I actually thought that was it. Meaning I got through. I'm telling you right now, the FBI and the CIA are literally, this is what cowards are. This is also what you know, where who is right and wrong, where is evil and good. Evil usually hides. Why? Because evil really wants to hide their corruption. The good people in general are very open. Look at me. I'm talking, hello, FBI, where are you? Little faggots. See, it's so embarrassing right now. We have to do this. But right now, I'm telling you, our government right now is sitting back and taking notes. Not like I even wanted to be on social media. But anyway, they are absolutely perplexed of what happened in Chicago. I don't even think people realize that what happened is absolutely extraordinary. So I'm in Chicago, and I keep talking about leadership, and I'm telling you, believe it or not, you have to trust your sixth sense, your intuition. I was in Chicago on the first day. Nothing. I was in Chicago on the second day because what had happened was they probably had to scramble to get me because I'm not living in America. They mobilized what's called the surveillance team after me. That's my guess. On the second day, I'm telling you, it was nothing more than intuition. And I said, I am under surveillance. No proof. No savvy tradecraft. I just felt I'm under surveillance. Now, when you're under surveillance, obviously I'm not driving in a car. In fact, I'm not even, which was another disadvantage, I'm not familiar with the city of Chicago. It was my first time in the city of Chicago. So, which is very bad. I don't understand the terrain and the association where to go. But again, I'm just there on business. But I'm walking the sidewalk and I'm like, I'm under surveillance and I have no clue why or where. But one thing you do from tradecraft is you get off the streets. Why? Because just like all intelligence agencies throughout the world, and oh, by the way, this is the FBI. This is their bread and butter. They consider themselves the best surveillance in the world. That's what they train on, is detecting this. So what happened here was really fucking bad and it's criminal. And this is part of my allegation. How the entire government is silent on this beyond me. Anyway, one of the things is you get off the streets. Why? Because or intelligence agencies, the vehicles that they're going to use are usually all nondescript. They're not driving Ferraris or 7 Series BMWs that are conspicuous. So they're usually driving very inconspicuous vehicles, and memorizing license plates is very difficult and it's too fast. But what is easier to memorize? Not vehicles, but people. White guy, black guy, short guy, fat guy, girl with earrings. It's easier to remember and recognize people versus vehicles. So the first thing is get off the roads. And again, that was another disadvantage to me, almost like I'm in a foreign country. I didn't know where I was, but I saw ahead there was a big park. It must have been whatever their version of Central Park is in Chicago. Get to the park. Why? Because then they're going to have the surveillance team is dismount their vehicles and go on afoot. So there I was, and I started doing what's called the surveillance detection route. Now, in that, and it's a big park, by the way. Again, I'm not familiar with Chicago, but if you look on that, it's a big park. I'm taking I don't know, like 4 or 5 football fields. It's pretty. It could be even more. It could be like 7, 8 football fields, and there's paths and there's trees, and it's kind of, there's all types of nooks and crannies. So it's not like just one big park where everyone sees each other. It's a really big park where people are walking around, basketball courts, tennis courts, sort of like not mountains, but a little bit of hills and trees and stuff like that. So I stayed in that park because I knew if once I leave it, they're going to have on every corner, they're going to have vehicles searching it, kind of like the fencing me in. So I say, stay in the park. And I said, sooner or later, or immediately, someone will dismount because they want to know, because they might be assuming that I'm going to do something in the park, maybe a dead drop, all this stuff. So while I'm in there, I probably did a surveillance detection route for probably 2 hours. Now, remember, I'm not there on any illegal. I am there for one purpose and one purpose only, to sue fucking the corrupt Boeing, because I have to do what's called testimony. There was no illegal acts whatsoever that I've ever done in my life. So make sure that point is done. So anyway, I continue to do the surveillance detection route. And then I find myself, if I remember correctly, it was August or July. I forgot. I've written the date down in the book. It's summertime, because I want to emphasize that. So this park is crowded. Picture kids. They're also with their shirts off. They're in the water fountain, splashing around, basketball. It's summertime. I'm in shorts and a T-shirt. And whatever you can imagine, Chicago weather, it's pretty hot. So it's a full park. So I'm going around for 2 hours, and I'm starting to sweat, because I'm going here, I'm going there, just to making sure, am I under surveillance? At the end of the time, I find myself in a part of the park where there's a fountain, there's benches and stuff like that. And I finally begin to talk to myself, again, intuition, and I say, David, you are being paranoid. I still remember this. You are not under surveillance. You're being paranoid. Nothing's happened. And it's a way to calm yourself down, but you're also using critical thinking. And I'm like, yeah, we all get these paranoid feelings. And then sometimes we got to realize that it's just paranoia. And so I'm literally just about to the part where my blood pressure and everything is like, what am I doing? This is absolutely ridiculous. There's no reason I should be under surveillance. Then again, why would I be under investigation by the FBI? But I'm talking myself through this. I'm like, you are being paranoid. You're not under surveillance. You're not under investigation. You've never done anything illegal. You're making this stuff up. Relax. And I relax. And I am telling you, at that exact moment, again, I'm in this crowded area in the park where there's water fountains, there's benches, there's kids sort of playing around through the sprinkler systems. And about 30 meters away on a bench, and I described the person in my book, this 5'9" white guy, blue polo shirt, khaki shorts, white guy, cropped hair, and there's a newspaper. Very nonchalant. And for some reason I said, that guy's FBI. I just knew it. I said, that guy is FBI. Now, of course, I'm not staring at him, but I just nonchalant, and he's not looking at me. He's looking in the newspaper, and I said, that guy's FBI. So at that time, I turned around. I'm trying to still act nonchalant, but what happens to my blood pressure? Coming up. Now, I've been under surveillance in foreign countries, and I'm telling you, what I'm about to tell you, you don't do in foreign countries. Why? Because when you're in a foreign country and you're under surveillance, you don't mess with those people. That's their country. You can get wrapped up and bad things can happen to you. Generally speaking, if you said, David, but what do you do if you're under surveillance? Well, you do whatever you got to do. I mean, there's advice, but generally speaking, you need to leave that country and maybe never go back. Why? That's not your country. You don't mess with them. But then all of a sudden something happened to me. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Because at that time, I realized without a doubt, my intuition kicked in. I said, that is 100% FBI and I'm under surveillance. And then I thought, are you fucking kidding me? I'm an American citizen, military veteran. This is my country and I'm under surveillance in my own country. So there's a bit of an anger that's building here that's not normal. But don't fool yourself. I see these people talking tough about the FBI. Every single arrest I made in the FBI, when the FBI bangs on your door and comes in with search warrant arrest, most people are fucking scared. The only people that I've ever met that were cool and calm, obviously, if you're under diplomatic immunity, you're fine. If you're a hardcore organized crime, like in the mafia, it's part of it. You've done your time. You're going back. You've done this. Meaning this ain't your first rodeo with the FBI. But normally for people, this is the first time they've ever been arrested by the FBI. Found. Trust me, nobody goes against the FBI. I'll tell you stories when we go in that. Nothing also, I'm doing a tangent, nothing salivates the glands of FBI more too when they start making arrests at the CIA, the NSA, the Pentagon, the White House. I am telling you, if there are two words to describe the FBI, power and secrets. Nobody is allowed to enter the FBI space unless you're invited or you're an FBI. We own that. Can we go in your space? Anywhere. We will go into the White House and arrest the president. I cannot tell you how powerful it is, which is, again, another reason in 2007, if you think I have something in me that I want to go up against the FBI, you are absolutely crazy. You do not mess with this agency. This will destroy you. I just wanted to be left alone. And I've never said anything negative about the FBI until I've been on social media. So anyway, as I've seen this person, there is a bit of an anger, though, that said, are you fucking kidding me? Now, if I was in a foreign country, totally different. I would probably think to myself, maybe it's a good time I end my vacation or business trip early, be very polite, be very nonchalant, and just get out of this country without disturbing them, provoking them, instigating them. Not a good idea. But for this, it was a little different. So what I'm about to tell you is, this is not what you would do in a foreign country, but you got to remember, as an American citizen military veteran, it was a little bit like, are you fucking kidding me? And what I also wanted to do was take that intuition where I'm thinking, I'm almost positive under surveillance, and let's solidify this. So at that time, I realized as I turned around, I'm looking through my phone, I'm looking through reflective mirrors and whatever on there. He's looking at me nonchalantly. I could tell. It's difficult because it's about 30 meters away, but it's a bright, sunny summer day. So it's clear, but there are people that walking through, kids are sort of going. So it's not so much of a easily direct line of sight, but I could tell he's looking at me. And I'm just solidifying again, this guy's FBI and I'm under surveillance. And at that point in time, and I think I wrote this in my book and I've done stories, and the reason why I'm saying this is this is the time for the government to answer the corruption, because here's where the corruption is. Then I make the move. I turn to a direction in the park. I'm not familiar with the park, but there was a path, and I do a full speed run. So even if you were a normal person looking at me, it's just odd, meaning that it's not like a running park where I was, and all of a sudden this dude is standing there, and now he's running. You know, like maybe I even like stole a purse, even though no one's looking at me that much, but I'm running out. But it was definitely odd behavior. And what am I trying to do? Draw them in. Trust me, the FBI right now is still writing notes on how much they fucked up this whole thing. So then I'm running. And what did I do? I wrote this in my book and interviews. I'm running literally, it must have been 400 meters. Again, I don't even know the part. I'm going straight. I'm taking a left. I'm taking a right. Boom, 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 down. And it's just moving. And I never look behind me because I'm moving out. And all of a sudden, I decided there was a nook when I'm going down a path where it was an L. And I just decided at that point in time, I've moved out fast enough. I'm going to hit that mark like a military about face and immediately do about face. And what do I see? Because this is what I'm playing. And at that time, I'm kind of getting out of breath. I stand about face and boom, I look to my rear. And what do I see? I see that same guy in a full pursuit chase after me. When he turns the corner and sees me, and I'm looking directly at him, now my look is differently. I'm looking at him with a look like, I know who you are and I know what you're doing. You have now been burnt. Again, I would never do this in a foreign country. And oh, by the way, this is not a foreign intelligence service. This is the FBI. This is what they do. When he sees me, his eyes just bulge out. He knows he's been burnt. This is horrible tradecraft on the FBI. We're not going to get into the point, but I am going to take this point. This is one of the criminal allegations that I've said, and this is why is the government quiet on this. They shouldn't be. One of the things I'm reporting is I've been physically assaulted. Now, truth be told, when the guy hit me, did he break any ribs? Did he do any permanent damage? No. But I'll tell you, man, he knocked the wind out of me. And the reason he knocked the wind out of me is, number one, I never had any intent to go hands-on with him. If you go hands-on with FBI or even police, good luck, you're screwed. Think about it. Let's use common sense here. My story's buried. No one will know about my story. So for the same reason, if an FBI agent physically assaults you or does anything, you think your story's going to come out? My story's not going to come out. So the part is I never intended to do any physical harm on him. So I wasn't prepared. It's the same reason that if you've been in boxing, one of the reasons boxers can take a lot of shots is they're prepared. The adrenaline's up. They're looking at their opponent. They're ready. But have you ever heard of a sucker punch? If you get sucker punched, one of the reasons that it hurts so much is you just were not expecting it. So the damage level. So I am just literally standing there in a zero fighting stance, zero, with no intention of doing any physically harm to him. And also, I wasn't prepared to take physical harm. So you have to remember that sense of a sucker punch. But when he hit me in both my solar plex and then my chest right here, it knocked the wind out of me and turned me and spun me around. Now, was it permanent damages? No. Was it a physical assault? 100%. So I'm telling you right now, I was physically assaulted by an FBI either agent or what we call one of the surveillance techs, the surveillance team, but an FBI employee nonetheless. I was physically assaulted. And if anyone doubts my story, then ask yourself, you have my side of the story right here. Where's the government side? Zero. Your tax money doesn't pay me. I'm a private citizen. Your tax money pays the government. I was physically assaulted, along with this other stuff. I was physically assaulted by the government. Not huge, but I'm telling you, it was an assault, both in my solar plex and my chest, that knocked the wind out of me. And I'm telling you, it shook me up. I was not prepared for it, and I almost literally fell over. So what is the side of the government? Did they say they didn't do it? Did they say I'm lying? Let's go. Let's have their side of the story. But I'm telling you, part of the reason they're not saying this is unheard of. I did surveillance in the FBI. This is not unheard of. That guy, I'm telling you, he is in a lot of trouble in the FBI right now because they know who he is, but it's handled internally. They're like, you dumb motherfucker, what did you do? But this is the same thing. You hear this from these intelligence people all the time. I see them on social media. These are the people who defend the intelligence agencies. And they say this. They say, all the American public knows about is the intelligence services failures because they come out in public. But you don't know all the good stuff we do because it has to be kept in secret. You've probably heard that before. They've said that before. I know some of these talking yo-yos on social media now, and they defend the intelligence agencies when they get pushed back on how corrupt they are. And they say, you don't understand. We work in a clandestine environment. So only our failures are made public, but our accomplishments must remain secret. What a bunch of horseshit. The failures remain secret too. Think about it. You think this event, the FBI is going to say, sure, we have to admit it. He was under surveillance and we physically assaulted him. Or they could at least say, no, that's a lie. He wasn't. Something. They've made zero comment. Why? Because I'm telling you, the amount of failures that the FBI, the CIA, intelligence agencies have done unconstitutionally too against U.S. citizens. Do you really think they're going to report it themselves? Do you really think they're going to say, well, I really think we should tell the American? Of course not. And how are we going to find it? Look at my case. You should ask yourself, say, this is the most ridiculous thing. This guy's been on social media almost 3 years. And then I've been trying to contact them one-on-one privately because I never want to go on social for another 3 years. This has been on 6 years. And there's not one politician, not one person from the government, not any of these MAGA politicians that have ever communicated, sent anything. A shitload have blocked me, but none of them have communicated to me. And you're telling me as an American citizen, a guy with my background, a West Point graduate, is just making this stuff up because I just want to make some money? Do you realize my channel right now? There are like I've made like how many books have I sold? I don't know, 100 books. If you really think this is I was doing very well overseas working in the job, meaning this wasn't a dream to be a social media or write a book. I was doing very well financially, meaning being left alone. This government, like me and like many other American citizens, have overstepped themselves unconstitutionally, illegally, and also immorally. And what do? They do a cover-up. Don't think so? I'll do another video later on Pat Tillman. It's as simple as that. But my story, even though I don't want to do this, because for 3 years I've been trying to talk with them privately. I said I don't want to write a book and I don't want to go on social media. Why? Because you don't poke the tiger. But they ignored me, and I said, well, let me go to the American people. And I'm going to end it with this, because I know we've gone longer. And you've heard me say this about China. I don't see much difference between the Chinese people and the Chinese government. I know the American, even though right now Trump loves the American, even though we've changed, now MAGA's like, dude, Xi Jinping's awesome. Trump says he's awesome. Like, we don't know. But anyway, you know what I'm saying before. Chinese government evil, Chinese people good. So Chinese people, you can immigrate to America as long as you're not part, right? No. They're about 80, 90% the same. I'm telling you, to America, remember the evil corporations, not the good American people, or the evil FBI management, not the good field agents. No, I'm telling you it is. But think of all these MAGA people that are high influence. They know about me. They blocked me. They don't even want us to resend it. But at the same time, they will go to you and say, I support military veterans. And I elected Donald Trump to rid us of drain the swamp and fight government corruption. And if they could do it to me, they're doing it to you. And so what did I learn now on coming on social media, where I've had sort of an indirect or direct taste of the American people on this? It's worse than I thought. This ship is really sinking, because I'm telling you, at the end of the day, when you have military veterans that even American citizens will say how much they support, but they really don't care about, do you think they're going to care about you? Think about it. Look at my background. Do you think you're different? Say, David, they're ignoring you. But I'm a different American citizen. If I came out and I had government corruption and I needed help of this corrupt government, I know the American people, these MAGA, they would rally around me and help me. Maybe. I don't think so. Think I'm wrong? We'll see where it goes. Until then, we'll just end it here. I see some questions, maybe, but the third party has it. But I'm going to end it here. And I keep saying, where's the future? You're going to see it. But these videos are going to age like fine wine. This system's going to get worse. I've never said anything positive about the Democrats, so don't even think I'm on the bandwagon of the Democrats. But this MAGA party has went from nationalism, it's going right back to globalism. And that's who we work for, the globalists. For the same reason that people like, you see, Massey, he tried to go up against Trump, and Trump won. No, Massey went up against Israel, and Israel wins. And if Trump goes against Israel, yeah, he's gone too. So I don't have a faith in these politicians. So what do? I'm going to end it here. One, I'll do more videos in the future. More and more Americans are leaving. You're going to end up leaving America. This ship is sinking. Or if you're going to get into politics and change the system, forget Washington, D.C. It is a lost. It is the bastion of Satan and snakes in Washington, D.C. It's not going to change. The only hope politically, and this sort of leads to civil war, it is what it is state politics. And I would, without a doubt, if there, sooner or later, you're going to start seeing certain red states really pop up. But the future is state politics, the governor, the senators, the congressmen, the National Guard, the state police, the state militia. And you're gonna need to flood that state, flood it. I mean, we're talking 90% plus. And then the political rhetoric, and you're going to need just people like, we have to guard Donald Trump with our lives. We need to protect the president of our lives. Well, you're going to need to protect the governor. That governor is going to be put in danger because that governor is going to start pushing back on Washington, D.C. Say, I don't think we should be paying these federal taxes anymore. I think South Dakota or whatever, Tennessee, Texas, I think it's time for us to secede from the union. You better protect them. And you're going to see National Guard, militia protect that governor. And that FBI office in their DEA, secrets, or whatever, all those federal agencies, they're going to start getting kicked out. And then you're going to start realizing, you're going to say, this is what David was saying. It's starting to form. Remember, people, this is not a conspiracy. We had a civil war already. We had a revolution already. How did America form? A guns, violence, bloody revolution. Did we have a civil war? In fact, if you look up the deaths of the Civil War, I don't know the statistics, but I think there were more American deaths in the Civil War between like so many wars combined. There's some type of more than Vietnam. I mean, it was a bloody Civil War. So we had a Civil War already, and America was formed on a violent revolution. That's the facts. And America is not an old country. It's a young country. This stuff, even though in America, 100 years sounds like a long time, living in China, 100 years is a blip. So this is in some ways recent. You don't think this is going to happen again? 100%. I say again, you better plan on leaving America or you better forget Washington, D.C. And sooner or later, Americans, the Patriots, a couple states are going to start being highlighted as these patriotic states that are usually probably going to be led by white men. And when those states start pushing against federal law, Washington, D.C., you are going to see a new serpent that you've never seen before. And it's going to rise from Washington, D.C., and they are going to crush what they're going to consider you people domestic terrorism. Like me, I'm considered, well, I guess I'd be considered an international terrorist now. It's going to happen. Until then, it is what it is. And I do the videos. And one day, I really hope that I still debate whether to keep doing these videos or not. Sometimes I think it's a lost cause. And the point is, either I'm right or I'm not. If I'm right, I don't need to talk. Meaning the Civil War is going to happen, the revolution's going to happen, the collapse guy, it doesn't really matter what I say. So sometimes I originally got on here to get support from the Americans to pressure the government to speak, not one person. But I don't think that's going to happen. So I am debating whether to keep doing this because the prediction of civil war, collapse, and revolution, you don't need me talking, meaning if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Not like I'm going to change anything. So do I really need to do this? And it goes against the big picture. If you really think this was my dream to come on here and be an ass clown on social media, it's not my personality. It's not my personality at all. And again, when I left America in 2010, I never said anything negative about America. I was very proud to grow up and be born in America. I truly believe America was a great country, but it's changing. And our American forefathers, along with me, would never condone what's happening in America. But I said, if you disagree, I just wanted to leave, and that's it. And I never say anything negative about America. I never say anything about an FBI. Never. I just wanted to be left alone. This fucking government is absolutely tyrannical. And Donald Trump said he's going to come and change it. I don't know. Maybe he will. But I'm telling you, there are so many people in the Trump administration. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. FBI, CIA director unit, they know 100% about me. 100%. Why are they silent? Why are they silent? Probably because they're hiding corruption and they don't care. And if they don't care about me, they probably don't care about you. Okay, that's enough. To the American patriots, I'm being serious when I say this. It's going to get worse. Grip hands. And if you're going to stay in America and you're going to form your base and you're going to get ready to fight, I am telling you, the future is state politics. Start looking at a state where you can hunker down with a militia. It's going to get that. Until then, David Baumblatt from Directorate Leadership telling the Patriots, lead to victory.